The real estate sector in Kenya has seen a boom, with the property market responding to increased demand. In Nairobi, the capital city of Kenya, the rebirth of property development has attracted a global attention. Nairobi was also voted as one of the top 10 cities to watch by global real estate firm. Land in Kenya is seen as a very basic, and no one wants to be forever a tenant. The property industry has therefore seen a surge of real estate companies, with Kenyans buying homes every other day. Suraya Property Limited, a family business, is the pioneer of property development. Parastatal TV had a chat with Peter K. Muraya, the CEO at Suraya, who gave us more insight on Suraya Property Development Kenya. Mr. Muraya is a jovial man, informed and an inspiration to the young generation.
My name is Peter Muraya, an architect by profession, but currently now doing property development. I think it came from the need that we sort of identified that is there in terms of people are not providing the sort of housing that we are seeing in other countries, especially in places like South Africa, Dubai. So what we had that time was twofold. You either had a house on half acre, or a maisonette, or an apartment. And yet in South Africa they had this sort of small units on small plots, but not half acre, right? But not again maisonettes, fully detached, which is very nice. So we thought, why can't anybody do it? And eventually we realized we had to do it ourselves. We realized if we were going to do this, achieve the vision we had, then who better place than ourselves to actually, action on that. So that's how we started Suraya in 2006. Then, everybody has his strength. I have my strengths, which is mostly the design. Coming from an architectural background, I have the architectural part of the business, which is related to property development, and I understand how to build houses. But Sue comes in with the other side of sales and marketing, which is good at, and which she has not trained, but she's got the natural flair for it. So it works out very well for the company. Land is a big problem, because if you look at the industry, the appreciation of land is roughly per year is maybe 30%, right? Construction, on the other hand, is of variations of 5%. You'll find the price difference between, let's say, 5 years ago and now. It's maybe 10% over the 5 years, or 15% over the 5 years, which is about 3-4% per year. But on land, it's 30% plus. And the amazing thing is there's still a huge demand for it. So no matter what price you put, the developers will buy it. But what it does is that today you find that the cost of the house, if you look at the pricing cost of the house cost, land should not be more than maybe 25-30% of the overall cost of the house. Today, it's actually 50%. If you take an example of a house in Runda, in fact, today in Runda, the house is more expensive. The land might be more expensive than the house, because half an acre might be 30-40 million. You can build a very nice house for 30 million. So you see, In this case, the land is much more expensive than the house. But it creates a very big problem of sales, especially in the high end. Because then a simple house in Runda, you're looking at 60 to 90 million shillings. So it's a problem. And I don't know what's going to happen or what can be done to solve that problem, because the problem is it's demand driven, right? Because as the population grows, as the businesses grow, there is that extra demand. More people are getting employed in businesses. The government is employing, the people are being paid better, banks are lending easier. So what does it do? There's a serious demand for housing, and everybody wants to have a house. So you find, on average, most projects that are put on the market are sold out within at least that, on the worst case, maybe the 2-year span during construction. Well, there is a big challenge in the mortgages, because if you look at, there was a World Bank report done in 2010, and the total mortgages in the whole country then were 16,000. 5 years later, we are at 20,000 or 21. So what does that mean? On average, we are growing at about 1,000 houses per year. For a population of 45 million, that's pathetic, right? Now, as to the solution to it, it's not very easy for two reasons. One, the interest rate is quite high. You find mortgages interest rates are about 15%. The other problem is that because of the land cost, the houses are expensive. So if you want to buy a house in the area that you currently rent a house, you can't. It's impossible. I mean, if I give you an example, if you're renting in Roka a 2-bedroom house for 30,000, and you can afford 30,000, but the same house for sale would cost you 7 million. A mortgage of 7 million will take you back close to 7, 8 million, 15, about 90,000. Now, that means it makes it impossible for most people to buy. So what's happening now is a lot of people are buying with SACCO loans, because they're a bit cheaper, they're about 12%, they're a bit easier to get than the normal mortgage. So as long as that position is there, then yes, it's a problem. And I really, the government they're trying. There's something they're trying to do. It's not very easy to get it off the ground. It will take a few years, but something must be done. I mean, we need to get mortgages at the levels of hundreds of thousands. I mean, and for that to happen, the rate must be much lower than 10%, in my opinion. And the land price needs to, or either we open up new areas, completely new areas, where the land price will be much lower, and you can still get the lifestyle that you want in those particular areas. Yeah. Well, that is called tenant purchase schemes. Now, the only people who do it in this country, apart from that Nakuru person that you're talking about, is NSSF. Because for you to do that, you must have a lot of idle cash, right? So you then put the cash in you buy the houses, right? And by buying the houses, you build the houses. You buy the land, build the houses, and for you're looking at it this way, that rather than have that money in the bank, right? By building the house and all that, the profit you'll make on it over that period, plus the interest, even if it's lower, because there's no way you can, like I said, I can be able to give you a house at the same rate you're paying interest, the normal rental at the moment. So for it to work, you have to look at it differently, like NSSF does. You have the cash. If you put in the bank, maybe you're getting 8%, per year. If I give it to you as mortgage, I've already got a profit of maybe 20% on the house. So I can afford, and even if I'm getting 6%, but I already have a profit of 20% uploaded on the house in the beginning, then it makes sense. But for most private developers, it doesn't make sense. Well, there are two issues here. Most of the country is focused on land titles and land ownership. And in that space, I think there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of interest, because everybody's very conscious about, there's that whole aspect of you want to own a piece of land somewhere. So there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of knowledge. I think even the titles, like you're saying now, the government is really trying to give people titles, because it's a very good thing what they've been trying to do. Especially shockingly, when I think during the elections we discovered, which we didn't know, when His Excellency spoke and said only less than 20% of the country has titles. Now that is quite shocking. We always imagined actually before that if you're in Mombasa and you live on a land and you've got a house, you have a title. But surprisingly, most of the country doesn't have titles. They have still sort of a communal knowledge, where everybody sort of knows that is Kamau's area, this is Moraya's area. But really, and the demarcation is purely by fence. But you know what it does? You can't utilize that. You can't borrow against it. You can't invest really seriously on it, because you're not quite sure what will happen 10 years from now. The banks will lend you money on it. So what they're trying to do now is a very good thing, because if you give people these titles, there's always that argument people will sell, but that's also part of development. Because if I give you the title you've been on and now you sell it to him, what happens? You go and start putting chickens, true, with the money. So you actually have now something else to do, right? So you don't want to farm, but you want to keep chickens or a shop. So land as itself is a very crucial asset, and the government must actually be encouraged. There's a lot of politics in it, but really they're doing the right thing, and they should continue doing that. The difference is now when it comes to housing, the housing laws that are in place are not adequate. They are cumbersome, they are slow, they are difficult to use. So they were designed, most of the laws were done, let's say 80s. The last one was done in 80s. And the way they are designed, most of these laws were designed when nobody imagined you could do more than 40 units. So they're designed to work very efficiently for low number of units. When you start working with projects like we are doing, where you have 1,000 units, then it's a problem. And it's a very big problem, because the whole registration process is very slow, and it's all to do with the law. Personally, we've been involved in trying to change that law, trying to create a new law that simplifies the whole process of house registration. And I'm not talking about land. I like to be very clear that I'm not dealing with land issues, because there you'll have guys putting on your outside here with banners that you become a land grabber. It's not about land, it's about property, right? So we've been spending a lot of time trying to find a solution that makes it easier, because if we can make it easier to own a house, then it makes it easier for you to buy the house. But right now, it's quite a tedious process that we find even in our projects, people get tired, especially where mortgage is concerned. They start off as mortgage buyers, they go through the bank, they find the process very cumbersome, very slow, and somebody ends up maybe selling a kashamba somewhere. and clearing, or going to SACCO and getting a loan, So the process of house registration, property registration, is not good, right? But something is being done by the government, and hopefully this year should not finish. Oh, a lot. The first one is we introduced gated communities into this country. Before 2006, you had never heard the word gated community in this country. So we did the first gated community at Roslyn. And when we started, everybody told us it would not work because it had never been done before, right? And the whole idea behind a gated community is that you secure the perimeter of the place. It doesn't matter how big it is. It can be an acre. Our first project was 23 acres. It can be 4 is 100 acres plus. It can be even 1,000 acres. The point is you secure the perimeter and you have controlled access. And then when that happens, you don't need to have everybody with a dog, security guard, and steel gate and stone fence. So what we did was we introduced that concept of gated communities, and the main reason was that we wanted to recreate the communal living. You see, when we grew up like where we grew up in shags, you knew your neighbors. Why? Because there's no gates. The neighbor didn't have a stone wall around his house. He had no gate. So as you're walking to the shops, you would see him, and he'd see you, and you talk to each other. So we've lost that over the years. So what we're trying to do was bring it back. And within our developments, we don't have gates, right? We don't have stone walls. We have green fences. And even if you want a gate, it's only for pets, and the gate can't be higher than that high. And it must be see-through. So you can't put a metal gate. And the whole point, and we put this in the laws that we do for the housing, and the whole point is to encourage that communal living, right? So that we stop living in prisons, home-built prisons, where you don't even know who's your next door neighbor. So it has worked very well, and the projects, now it's become the thing that everybody wants to do, and we are happy. We are quite happy to be the pioneers and let people, follow the lead that we have. So that's, I would say, is one of the biggest sort of contributions we did. The other one was JVs, joint ventures with landowners. Again, we pioneered that joint venture aspect with landowners. Today, there's a lot of developments done by JV, by way of JV. It helps two things. You are sitting on idle land. It's worth a lot of money, but you have no money to develop it, and you have no knowledge to develop it. And when you think of maybe going to a bank to borrow money, it scares you, because you're thinking, what if the engineers don't do the right job, or the sales guys don't sell? So it's very scary in that aspect. So you find a lot of people would rather either sell the land or just hold it and do nothing. So the JVs have helped open up that space, because the owner gets the benefit of his full land value, maybe in a shorter time, as opposed to selling it as a subdivision. Two, the risk is shared with the developer, who is possibly putting in money, possibly not, but at least he's putting the technical know-how on the development of the project. And it works. And now, again, most developers are doing it. Now government wants to do it, parastatals are doing it, like housing finance. It's a good thing. Yeah. So for us, we like the fact that we have at least achieved something beyond ourselves, beyond our success. So it helps the general, and we've also encouraged a lot of, when we started, there was not a single African developer. Today there are hundreds of African developers, and we've encouraged a lot of them over the years Some of them directly, some of them just the fact that they can see you and hear you on TV or on radio, which in the early years we used to do a lot more. And that was done on purpose. I mean, it was done to encourage, to show people that it's possible. That, there was always the fear that you must have money. We didn't start with money. We started with an idea. So we decided once it got off the ground that we'll talk and let people realize that you can actually do it without money. And we would teach people how to do JVs, right? When we went to do the JVs, we had no money, right? We just had the idea and the technical know-how on what needs to be done, right? And today, there's a lot of that sort of development everywhere. I'm very happy to see there's a lot of Africans, both young and old, in the business. And the other day, it was rebased to the third most important industry in the GDP. It's a good thing. The challenges, a lot. But I use the right word. We call them challenges. We don't call them problems. Well, one of the challenges is that sometimes that has happened is the landowners, once you get them out of the hole that they have been stuck in, and they start seeing there's a lot of greenery, they sometimes become greedy and want to chase you away and take over the projects. And it's a bit of human nature, When you're stuck and you're not able to get out of some situation, you think that's it. If somebody holds your hand and lets you cross the river, suddenly you think, I crossed the river, So it's part of a big, especially with JVs, it's a challenge. And we've had our own issues, some very public in the newspapers a few years ago. Thankfully, we managed to resolve it quickly enough. But yes, there is a lot of challenges in that. Again, with any business, it's a risk. If you're going to borrow money, if you're going to buy land, sometimes you buy land and you find the title is fake. So you have to really just sort of try and find, you find this challenge, you find a different solution, But even like I'm telling you, the registration process is a challenge because today it takes roughly 9 months to register a mortgage. It takes 5 to 6 months to register a cash buyer. Now, that's a big problem for us as developers because it means I have to carry the debt of the bank loan, and at the same time, it makes it very expensive for you as the buyer because I try as much as possible to pass it on to you. So every time the bank hits me with some interest, I throw it at you. So it makes the house more expensive. In fact, if you look at most developments, the difference between a cash buyer and a mortgage buyer is sometimes 25% on the price, and it's purely bank interest. Oh, it's huge. We from the onset, we decided that would be at the top of the pile in the real estate. And that's our driving force. We have this sort of, in fact, initially we had thought we'd go a lot to now it's called counties. We haven't even managed. We are still in Nairobi and its environs. So we are currently building close to 4,000 houses, but you can imagine they're all just within Nairobi. So we are a bit in Machakos, but it's more Mlolongo. Actually it's just Nairobi and a bit even Kiambu, not yet. So there's still a lot of potential to go to the counties, right? Especially with devolution now, there's a lot of demand in the counties. And there's a lot of what I'd call sort of if you look at most counties, they didn't have any developments for years. So now you've got everybody going back to the counties to work there, the MCAs, the staff, the what. They require decent housing, they require decent facilities. And it's happening. I mean, if you find today now, there's malls coming up in small towns like Nanyuki. You know, there's big houses there, very expensive houses in Nanyuki. Kisumu is vibrant, very vibrant in terms of development. So there is a lot of scope in terms of county expansion, plus even regional expansion for us. So we are looking at different ways of getting out or keeping the business going. We've now started doing commercial buildings we were not doing before. We've just about finished our first office block, just here at the roundabout, which is 100,000 square feet. We are also now developing hotels. The first one is here as well. We're doing a 4-star hotel. So we want to do a mall at Fourways and a hotel. So there's still a lot of things we need to do even within the projects we have. You know, but the idea is that we will expand and we'll keep expanding, and eventually we will hopefully, the first place we want to go is the counties, and then after that we'll go to the region, you know, with different products, and we're trying to create products that you can carry along in the different areas. Competition is always there and will always be there. The issue is how you deal with it. You know, it's not, you can't, you have to understand your competition. So we do a lot of research on projects, other people's projects. We want to understand why your project is selling and why his is not selling, you know, in the same zone. So we'll spend time, we'll go in there and find out. Sometimes we'll even come and pose as buyers in your project so that we get to know exactly what is it you're doing, you know. And it's all to do with trying to understand the market, because it keeps changing, you know. So, you know, when we started, like I'm saying, there was no competition. So you put a project on the market, it sells immediately. Now today, you put a project in the market, it doesn't sell immediately. It sells a bit and sells, you know. So you have to ask yourself why. Try and create products that maybe can sell a bit easier. And always looking for a niche. What sort of market? What is it that you want, you know? So we're always trying to innovate in terms of different products. Like, give you an example. 3 years ago, we introduced what we call starter homes. Right? And the starter homes were units geared towards two sets of people. One I'd call a first-time home buyer, young first-time home buyer, who can't afford an expensive house. At the same time, he wants to live near the city and near the entertainment and the bars and, you know, the whole usual. So that guy is not going to go and live in Kamulu. You understand? He'd rather rent and die renting. He's not going to go and live in Kamulu. He's fixated on the fact that I'm a town guy and I want to be, you know, near Carnival and the other things, you know. So we came up with a product which we call Links. And initially we started off with, we did that sort of house. Very small units where a bed sitter is 15 square meters, maybe you don't understand square meters, but to put it in perspective, you understand a servant's quarter, right? Now a servant's quarter is about 7-8 square meters. So what we did is we took the servant's quarter and enhanced it so that within the servant's quarter we give you your own shower and toilet, and we give you your own cooking area, right, and a bit of wardrobe space. And the whole idea was that rather than you go and rent a servant's quarter for 20,000, which is what is happening in some areas, then buy that studio or bed sitter for 1.5 million shillings, right? So when you are outside, like in Mlolongo, we have our project called Nkasa, which is 1,000 units. Now, in that one, we wanted to come with a house below 1 million. So the same house in that bed sitter is about 1 million. A 2-bedroom house is about 3 million shillings, right? So, and they are finished. The level of finishing is the same as our other projects. So they're not low cost. They're actually affordable housing, right? We don't want to do low cost. I think low cost should be left to government, right? So we do affordable housing. Now, we took that same concept and brought it into town. And we've created something called Links, which it's similar units, bed sitters and studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, up to about 3 bedroom, small rooms, small units. The 2 bedroom, for example, just so to get an idea, a normal 2 bedroom is 80 square meters. Our 2 bedroom is 45, so about half, but it has everything, right? It has a kitchen, it has your master is en suite, you have your other visitors' toilet. I'll show you samples here. So because we knew nobody would understand these houses, when I told my staff, they all laughed. They said, there's no way you can build a house for that sort of price. So I thought to myself, if my own architects don't understand this, how is the public going to understand it? So what I did is I built them 1-to-1, right? So we built the units, changed it, of course, keep changing it. We built the unit, and then we put it on the market 3 years ago. The Mlolongo project was fast, and we sold 400 houses within 3 months, right? Then we came to town, we went to Mbagathi Road, we decided we sold it in Mbagathi at 1.6, 1.7. The 2-bedroom which we are selling 3 million at Mlolongo, the same 2-bedroom we sold it here for about 4.5 million. But that cost is mostly land cost. The fact that that plot in Mbagathi Road costs 60 million, while Mlolongo, I got 13 acres for 60 million. You see the difference? Yeah. So that's what creates a problem. But the product works. It sells very well. We are currently doing the 4th one in that zone of Ngong Road, Uchumi, that area. And we've got links at Mbagathi, links at Royal, links at Ngong Road. We are doing now links at Mushai. Total units now will be about 1,000 something in that zone. And that's a product that will keep building because it's got a market, it sells, it's finished properly, and there's a demand for it, right? So that's, for us, we are always trying to do something different. Now, of course, once you do it, people are going to copy you, right? But that doesn't worry us. We're quite happy to be copied, right? And we move on to something else, you know? But the whole idea is to always look for, rather than worry about competition, is look for innovative solutions that meets the market demand. And that's how we focus our business. It's an interesting one. Can I start with you guys? Let me give you some serious advice. Right? Right? And you know, there's 2 problems, especially for young people. You know what I'm saying now, you know, for young people. One is that it's a choice of how you live. You understand? So the choice of how you live in the beginning will actually determine how you finish. Now, a lot of us think in terms of, when you're young, you think 10 years is a long time, and you can't even see 30 years ahead. So you think that I've got a job now, I want to live in a nice area. So you go and rent, let's say, a bed sitter in Nairobi West or a servant's quarter. then you're promoted, you move to the 1-bedroom in Nairobi West, then you're promoted, you move to the 2-bedroom, then you get married, you know. And what does it become? It becomes a vicious cycle. So that every time your salary goes up, you move your lifestyle. And you'll never find a match. Right? Now, the opposite of that is a person who initially looks like he's stupid because he's not living. When you guys leave the servant's quarter, he stays. Right? And when you move to the 1-bedroom, he stays. You move to the 2-bedroom. But 10 years later, the guy passes you and goes to Runda. And you're wondering what happened. Right? Yeah. So, but it's about choices that you make in your life. And the problem is a lot of choices we make are made under peer pressure. Right? So you want to live in a certain area because your friend lives in that same area. Right? So you don't want to live in a less area. And yet you hardly can't afford it. You're just surviving, you know. The idea is to look at it short term. Look at 5-10 years as a short term. Because you have a life. And if you start working at 25, if you take the first 10 years, 35, you're going to really, you know, be frugal, as they say, in terms of your livelihood. But the point is, use that, whatever saving money you have, my point is don't save money, which is what people try and do. Look for pieces of land. Don't buy houses because you can't afford a house, but you can afford a piece of land, right? And we've done that with our staff here. We have taught them. They thought, the first time I told them, thought I was crazy. I told them, you know, I can make all of you millionaires. And they thought, you know, this guy is crazy. But it has worked.